Hey there, friends. Karen Pennington. Yesterday, I got an unexpected blessing in that I was able to spend time with my family somewhere. We went somewhere on a trip. We weren't expecting to do it. It was awesome. And with my husband, and who's also part of my family. I don't know why I singled him out. But then this morning, I was reminded about my husband over and over and over again in my daily Bible reading. And I was reminded of the worst subject. I was the absolute worst I had ever been at the subject. It was so hard for me. And that's the subject of Hebrew. I was just not very good at it. I want to relearn it, but I love the idea of the language. And the reason this comes together is the summer that I learned Hebrew. Also, I believe either one or two summers before I got married, there was this word that kept coming up over and over and over and over again in Hebrew. And I know it by heart. And the reason I know it by heart is it is the word for son, which is Ben. Well, guess what my husband's name is? So I think part of the reason I was such a horrible student is that I was starry-eyed and in love. I still am. Maybe not that distracted by his name now, and so every time, in the Bible it talked about so-and-so was the son of so-and-so. Well, Ben came up. Do you know how many times people talk about being sons in the Old Testament? So I would just hear Ben, and all of a sudden I would daydream, and my head was out of the class. It was summer anyways, and I think about what we're going to name our sons and daughters, and it was it was wonderfully horrible, and it was horribly wonderful all at once, and somehow I passed the class, but anyways, it still kind of pings anytime I look in scripture and I see a lot of Ben, 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 or son, 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 because they're both the same and one is the same as the other. And so as I'm reading about the life of Solomon, and we're right after that chapter where he asks for wisdom, and God says, I'm going to give you wisdom and riches, and Solomon shows his wisdom. This next step, I believe, is them trying to reflect the wisdom that Solomon showed, or at least the train of thought when he was choosing his top officials. Now, 23 officials are named. We're talking about there were 11 top officials in his house, in his palace, like his administrators, his advisors, the people that oversaw certain things. I guess you might call them his cabinet. And then there were 12 governors, because he had divided the kingdom into 12 different areas, and there were 12 governors, one governor for each area. The interesting thing here is of the 23 people who are mentioned, only 3 of them don't have a father mentioned. Technically 4 of them, but one had his father mentioned in a different book. So at least 20 of the 23 were connected with a father, was the son of, or of the son. And in our modern society, that almost seems unfair. Like, wait, is there an entitlement here? His father did it, so he could do it. Is this whole, like, I can't have a father? Well, I don't think so. I think it's about being connected to something. But let's be honest, family names do evoke certain things in our minds. I can say certain names, particularly to my American friends. I'm sorry if you're listening in from a different country. This might not make as much sense. But for instance, if I say the name Kennedy, you might think of Space Center. You might think of airport. Or you might think of the president, or the person who ran for president, or the people in politics. It was a big political family. Or you may think of rich people from New England. One of those things. If I say Adams, same thing. I guess there's an Adams there. Well, they're talking about business, but there are two different presidents who were Adams' father and son. Same thing with Bush, father and son. What's the thing with Bush and Adams? They're presidents and they're beers at the same time. But you either thought beer, probably, or president, political figure. Same thing with Clinton. But then I can say something like Hilton. And you might think Paris Hilton. Okay, fair enough. Debutantes, people who are famous for being, wild lifestyles. But you might think of the Hilton hotel chain, because that name is associated with something. Or Smuckers, which of course I had to put food in there because I'm always hungry when I post. You think of that jam jelly family, or Heinz condiments, Windsor, a lot of times House of Windsor, Queen Elizabeth right now, England. We think of rulers, we think of Europe, we think of kingship, the feudal system. In Hollywood, we might think of Douglas and think like Kirk Douglas or Michael Douglas, or we might think Baldwin and the Baldwin brothers. One name, it's like you associate these people that they're with. And the thing is, like, for instance, just because you're a Baldwin, your name is Baldwin, doesn't mean you can act. However, when you hear Baldwin, you know that there are, 4 or 5 brothers, a bunch of brothers, and every single one of them can act. So there's some sort of heritage there that they grew up in something where they had either natural gifting, I don't know if you want to call it genetics, or the way their parents enabled them. Jackson family. I mean, you may think Andrew Jackson, but the Jackson family, they're all musicians, or the Osmond family, all musicians. There's this thing where, okay, just because you're an Osmond doesn't mean you can sing. But this idea that we're associated with this kind of branding and this honor, we're brought up in a certain way, which predisposes us to maybe excel in this area. I'm also thinking of the Graham family, Billy Graham, Franklin Graham, and Graham Lotz. This is a man who brought his children up to know the Lord and to share the Lord with integrity. Now, just because you're a Graham, does that mean you get a free ticket to heaven? No, that's not it. It's sometimes when we have a name, it gives us a leg up. When we have parents who bring us up with love and with respect and with honor and with discipline, that predisposes us. It doesn't give us a free ticket. We still got to do our work, but it gives us a leg up. If we come up in a certain school, that's why people who graduate from Ivy League schools a lot of times have an easier time getting jobs. Not because necessarily they're inherently smarter than somebody that went to the local community college, but it means that that particular school did a lot to prepare them. They've been in a culture and they've been cultivated somehow. You can go to Harvard and be poor. You can be brilliant and not go to an Ivy League school. You can be a wonderful preacher and not be related to Billy Graham. The opposite is not true. It's not because I'm not part of this, somehow I can't do it. But there is something to be said in what we can do for our children and cultivating them. There is also something to be said for those of us who maybe didn't have the greatest parents or didn't have the easiest upbringing. Where are we hitching our wagon? What are we attached to? What is our own history? We can be attached to our own history. And I want to talk about some of Solomon's officials and how I think that even the way they were named says something about their history. And we're in 1 Kings 4. I'm really not going to jump around a lot today. I'm going to tell some backstories, but I don't want to jump around too much. I want to stick to these actual names. So we'll start with Solomon's chief officials. We can call them his cabinet. These were the chief religious advisors, people in charge of his house and his office, and the people who were in charge of other people. I think the biggest thing to see is kind of, if from the U.S., the cabinet, the royal cabinet. And there were 11 names mentioned here. Of these 11 names, 8 said they were the son of someone or something. Now that's significant. Son of someone or something. What did they come from? And one of them came from Zadok, who was a priest. What was his heritage? Zadok and Abiathar, who stayed the priests for Solomon, were the priests that not only gave Solomon's father a lot of wisdom, but they stayed loyal to him. They were the messengers, because when David's other son planned a revolt and kicked David out and David's life was in danger, they saved his life, they saved his kingdom, because they just stayed. They stayed and they were able to move freely. So they gave messages to David. So they were extremely loyal in the face of their life. I mean, at the risk of their own life, basically. And so there was this idea of they would have brought up Azariah. Zadok would have brought up his son Azariah to be the same way. So Zadok and Abiathar, they were 2 of the 3 whose parents weren't mentioned because they had already established themselves with David. So where are they coming from? I'm coming from a place where I was already, Solomon isn't mentioning my dad, but I was loyal to Solomon's dad. So they were like the high priest. They were the ones that were most trusted, and then Zadok's son Azariah became a priest as well. Then Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. Well, we don't know about Jehoiada, but again, Benaiah was somebody who was attached to something about Jehoiada was great. We don't know anything about his dad. But Benaiah was the one who was faithful to David. Again, faithful to David. He was like the second in command of David's army. And his boss, Joab, in a way was faithful to David, but he did a lot of cruddy stuff. Like David would say, this person's going to help run, and then Joab just would kill someone if they didn't like him. He did it a couple different times. He killed people who were very worthy and very good, and he did it in the name of loyalty to David, but basically it was his own interests. So that's not what Benaiah was. Benaiah was more faithful in that case. So Solomon said, okay, this is someone who's faithful to my father. He'll be faithful to me. That's this connection. That's who he hitched his wagon. There was also the sons of Nathan. There were two sons of Nathan who were the ones, one of them was a chief advisor to the king, and one of them was the chief advisor and overseer of all the governors. Now that's a family dynasty, because Nathan was the prophet who not only stayed faithful to Solomon's father David, but he cared enough about him that he was the only one who was brave enough to point out David's sin when David had done this horrible thing where he impregnated someone else's wife and then did something that would get that man killed simply because the man would not be with his wife when he shouldn't be. That he rewarded Uriah's faithfulness by killing him and taking his wife. And Nathan was the one who told David's father about what he was doing that was wrong with David, about his father David. Let me start again. Nathan was this person that told David, Solomon's father, that what David was doing with Solomon's mother was wrong, and he's the one that brought him back to God. He did it wisely. So there is a certain amount of loyalty that comes in sticking with someone no matter what. There's a greater degree of loyalty when you're willing to tell someone something hard, even if it'll hurt you, because you know it's what they need to hear. Even if it'll hurt them, because you know that's something they need to hear. When you're willing to tell hard truths, that just is a deeper level of loyalty. And I think Solomon recognized that in Nathan, as did David. And then his sons took up the mantle of what Nathan did. And even more so, there were some more governing things. And there were a few other people who were mentioned by their father's name, and we don't know about their fathers, but just because we don't know it in the Bible doesn't mean that wasn't a significance. I think attaching them, it may have been there's Jehoshaphat, was mentioned by his father. There are a ton of different Jehoshaphat, so that may just be delineating this is the Jehoshaphat. Now Jehoshaphat mentions his father, but again, he worked for David. So it's like every single one of these, there's only one person mentioned of his 11 advisors that aren't linked to either his father David's reign or who their father was. So they weren't linked to, what do you come from? Are you coming from a place of faithfulness to my father? Are you coming from a father who we knew? It's that heritage thing. It's not you get a free pass because of your dad. It's because you went to this Ivy League college, because you did this, because you were brought up right. We know that you have a little bit extra leg in, and I've seen what your dad did, and I've seen what your dad did with you. So I'm familiar with you, and I'm familiar with your history. I'm familiar with your school of thought. So you're in, Then we have Solomon's 12 governors. This is interesting because the word Ben is used, again, my husband, in every case but one of these 12. And this one case where it's not used, first of all, it's Solomon's son-in-law. So there's a family connection right there. Secondly, if we cross-reference this with, I got it, 1 Kings 15:27. you will find out there's still a connection there. There's still a connection. This person whose father isn't mentioned by probably some weird omission, is probably another son of Zadok, the priest, that high priest who had been so faithful to David. Everywhere else that word Ben is used over and over and over again. But this is interesting. When the word is put, this is a Hebrew thing. When the word Ben is put in front of a name, it means son of, like progeny, like this is the physical son of a person. This is the family line that they come from. But for 5 of the 12, this word Ben is put on the other side, which technically it still means son, but it could mean something different. It could mean like a physical characteristic. So he wasn't necessarily valuing them because of who their father was, because these probably very well may not have been the names of their fathers. These 5 people where the Ben was put on the back end instead of the front. Like the characteristic came first, then the son came second. And we know this a lot. Like, for instance, my husband's name, because of the way it's written, it's all together, one word, not two. Benjamin, son of my right hand. Now, Jacob's youngest son, Israel's youngest son, that tribe of Israel, was called Benjamin. But Jacob's name wasn't Jamin or Yamin. His father's name wasn't my right hand. It was son of my right hand, in other words, son of favor. And there are different times where we go son of something or of something the son, and you're talking more about a characteristic that defines you, a characteristic that has been embedded in your nature that makes you of great value. That is very much a part of heritage. When we say son of and a father or a name, a lot of times we're talking about things that people or resources that have been given to that person to cultivate them. If you're a Hilton, you probably, part of the Hilton family, you have a stake in the Hilton fortune of Hilton hotels. And this may be a case where it's really good. You see Paris Hilton, and she is the daughter of the Hilton family, of the Hilton fortune. And then you see she lives a Hollywood lifestyle. She doesn't necessarily express a deep faith in God. I don't know where she is, but you don't associate her with great-grandfather Hilton, who was a devout Christian. So there is access to resources there, but she's not connected with that faith that once defined the family. So some of these people are connected in that we've had this resource, and in this case, I'm assuming because they've had this resource, they're predisposed, as in Franklin Graham, who's known for his faith and his preaching and his conviction. And it is generally assumed, for good reason, that much of that came from the heritage that his father instilled in him. And then we also have people who are not mentioned by who their father is, but by who their traits are. I want to talk about some of them. Benah of Ahilud. We don't know who Ahilud was, but he had a brother, Jehoshaphat, who had been a faithful servant of David. And Jehoshaphat actually was on the other side, was on the king's cabinet advisors. Ahinadab, son of Edo. This is interesting. Edo was the person that oversaw the whole tribe of Manasseh ahead of him. There's a vast, vast land. And so his son, the same person in this area, would be Ahinadab. So this would be a legacy, really, where he was trusted with what his father's trusted from. He probably learned, almost like a family business, he learned the ropes from his dad. And then there was the one whose father wasn't mentioned, but he's probably the priest's son. Benah, son of Hushai. Hushai was the spy. There was Zadok, the priest, who went back and forth and was a messenger, but Hushai was the spy who purposely fed the person. When Absalom went against David, he was the one who purposely, gave him bad advice and held him off so that he could not defeat his father, and he saved the kingdom for David. So there was again a faithfulness there that was rewarded. And this idea of he was a wise man, and he not only knew how to be wise, he knew how to make folly look as wisdom, which is what was needed in order to save the kingdom. So he was crafty. And then there were a few that their names were mentioned, the fathers' names were mentioned, but we don't know what they are. But again, there could have been several fathers, just because they're not mentioned in a fairly short set of history for Israel doesn't mean they weren't there. But there was just this connection back to, oh, it's that person's son. It's that person's son. And often that person's son, that person was somebody who had taught them how to be faithful, taught them how to be kind, taught them how. I mean, friends, there's two things here. For those of you who are parents, those of us who are parents of any ages, don't think that what you don't do doesn't matter. Don't think that. I had the misfortune once of having a conversation where mother told me, she felt defeated. Anything my kids do, I deserve it, so I just let them do it. No. Your kids aren't a punishment. They're a gift. And they're also a responsibility. That's like saying, someone gave me money, so I just better squander it because that's who I am. No. You have a responsibility. And you know what? Your kids, they might be just fine, even if you mess up in every way. God's greater than your mess ups. But we have the opportunity to breathe life into them every day. We have the opportunity, instead of giving them, forget even an Ivy League faith. We can give an Ivy League faith, give them the most resources we can of love, of encouragement, of compassion, of good boundaries, of wisdom, of a love for the word. Maybe they won't love it right away, but if they see you loving it, if they see you living it, you better believe that's going to give them a leg up. And we don't get to say, oh, God will just be with them anyways. We get to say, God, please make up for my mistakes because I'll make them. That's fine. That's humility. But say, I'm just going to mess up, but God will be fine. That's a cop-out. Do you really want to stand before God on the day of judgment and explain why you thought that was an okay thing to say? You really do? And those who already feel like I've made mistakes, oh my goodness, I still feel like that. I'd look at my granddaughter and it's almost like she's my chance at redemption. And I don't think I was a horrible mom, but you think about things that you wish you would have done. I wish I wouldn't have been as snappy with my daughter. I wish I would have, told her how much I love her more. I tried to, but sometimes I was just, crankier than I needed to be. And I took her with me, but sometimes I wasn't fully present. And you think of that, and it's not about that. You do the best, and you still got to do that thing. But we have this opportunity to give our kids a leg up, to give them a better chance. There's always a chance in Christ. Statistically speaking, there's a better chance if we're cultivating it. We sow a seed, there's a chance it's going to go up. It's the economy of, of horticulture, I guess, and I'm horrible at sowing seeds. And that could, in a real sense, I'm horrible at gardens. But sowing lots of seeds has a greater chance for fruit. It's just the way it is. We keep sowing seeds into them. They have a greater chance of fruit. And cultivating the right soil has a greater chance of fruit. There's a reason that good farmers don't just throw seeds everywhere. Fine, throw them everywhere if you want to. There's a chance that they don't just throw a bunch of seeds together. There are ways that we can cultivate that give our little younglings, our little seedlings, a chance at flourishing and being strong and nourishing others. Take it. Just start by saying, God, I want to do it, and believing that, But for those of us who maybe didn't have a great upbringing, and by the way, no matter where you are in your parenthood, it's never too late to start. Your kids could be 40. It's never too late to start telling them how much you love them and sowing things and repenting. Repent. Admit that you made mistakes. It doesn't make you weaker. It makes you look more honest, more vulnerable, more able, more available for a real relationship. But then, so Solomon had these bunch of people that he named by their father. But then there were some, he did this thing with the word Ben. He put it on the other side of their name, which means that, so instead of saying the son of her, he said Ben-Hur. Instead of saying the son of Decker, he said Ben Decker. Instead of saying the son of Ben Hesed, he said, the son of Hesed, he said Ben Hesed, Ben Abinadab, and Ben Geber. I'm sure I said that wrong. So my theory, and you Bible scholars can go against me if you want, but my theory is it's because this heritage thing was still important, but rather than connecting them to a person that they came from, a resource, he was connecting them to this inherent trait, not just inherent, something they had cultivated, something that was already in them, and something that they had cultivated. Ben-Hur. Now, there were a couple mentions of her, but Hur means to make white, to become white. So Ben-Hur very easily can be taken of son of purity for the hill country of Ephraim. He had somebody who had purity of intention and heart, and that is a strength. We don't always see that as strength in war, but let me tell you, how do you attack unknown weaknesses when there's no unknown weaknesses because people are just honest about it? How do you do that secret attack when there's nothing hidden? That purity thing really messes Satan up. Because how does he work in the dark when there's nothing in the dark? When it's all light? Or when we're willing to shine a light on it when we recognize it. It just kind of messes up that deeds of darkness thing when there's no darkness. And then there's Ben Decker. And Dakar means to pierce through. So, or want to penetrate. So we get son of penetration, son of darkness. We could talk about someone who's sharp. We could talk about someone who's to the point, who gets things done. And who's focused, and who is intelligent, and who is wise. This is, who doesn't want someone who's really sharp? And who doesn't need somebody on their team, somebody who's to the point? Somebody that pulls us back and goes, okay, we've gone down a rabbit hole, come right back. We have I call my church an ADHD church, because we all just are like everywhere, and our pastor's ADHD, we love him for it, and it's called real life, so it's okay to be kind of helter-skelter sometimes. My speaking is often like that, but then we still have those people that kind of are really good at pulling us back to the center. Okay, what are we here for? And we have these goals that we have them, and they're defined about who we are. And so even as we get helter-skelter, there are these people that grounds us and brings us back to that. You need that. Ben Hesed, I love that. Hesed is mercy, kindness, gentleness, goodness. The Hesed of God is God's loving kindness. It's really a nature of God. And again, one might see that as weakness. Well, because it's a dumb thing to say, but we do sometimes, thinking that we're kind is weak. But who has more allies, the kind or the mean? The mean, horrible tyrants, they just have a bunch of people who are afraid of them. They may have allies because people are afraid of them. People with Hesed have friends. So son of mercy and son of goodness. Abinadab. This was an actual person. Could have been David's brother. So this could have been the son of David's brother, which would have made him Solomon's cousin. It was also Solomon's son-in-law. They did that back then. It could have been Abinadab, the person, and the Benjaminite who watched over the Ark of the Covenant for 20 years. That had a lot of faithfulness, and to keep the Ark of the Lord's presence. That was, very holy artifact that represented God's presence, and they believe, God's presence was there and carried God's presence and the promise. Somebody who guarded that would have definitely been considered faithful, but I don't think it's important who the father was. That word Abinadab means my father is noble. So literally Ben-Abinadab would have been son of a noble father. And he was literally nobility because he was also the son-in-law of the noble king. But again, there's still that thing of whoever his dad was, he taught him how to be noble. He taught him how to be upright. He taught him how to be good. He had been well brought up, which was a leg up, Maybe he didn't do anything of significance in the kingdom. Maybe he was just a good man who raised a good son. Just, not just. There's a shortage of that nowadays. Somebody who is willing to be a good man who raises a good son, fathers who are willing to stick around, who are willing to do the hard jobs because it's more important to do that. That's the higher calling than just being famous or being rich or being significant. And then finally, Ben Geber. I know I said that wrong. And that's son of Gabar, son. It's a might, strength. And he would have been son of strength. Son of strength. What he's talking about? I mean, we're talking about purity. We're talking about intelligence, sharpness, and organization. We're talking about goodness. We're talking about nobility. And we're talking about might. These may have been names, but they were titles of things that were important to rule a kingdom. So again, what is your heritage? What are you attaching? What are you hitching your wheels up to? There aren't orphans in God's kingdom. We fight against that orphan spirit, whether we have parents or not, or we're like, it might be my dad. He was a custodian. Well, first of all, custodians can be amazing. First of all, they clean things. Who wants to be in a dirty place? My father was a garbage man. My mother was a substitute teacher. Now, no knocking substitute teachers. That's my job. My job is I am a substitute teacher by choice. There's never a just in the kingdom of God. If you're doing what God is calling you to do, then that's good, right? Or maybe my dad was an alcoholic who I never knew, and when I saw him, he smacked the snot out of me and my mom. Or my mom was on drugs and left us at an early age. All of these things. And, you know, and that's what the heritage you claim. You don't have to do that, though. You can be the son of might, even if you never knew who your father was. You can be the son of nobility, even if your father was a beggar or your mother was on welfare your whole life. Maybe she needed to be. Maybe she chose to be. I don't know. What I'm saying is we can choose. This is weird. You know, we think about heritage being something that's handed to us. And sometimes we get that. We can choose to receive the good heritage that comes to us. We can choose where we're hitching our wagon. We can choose to call on the name of Christ and to no longer be orphans. And to be in that line of Abraham, to be in that line of David, to be in that line of Solomon. No matter who our father is, we can choose to be the child of purity, the child of intelligence. Let's say knowledge, the right kind of knowledge, not just a bunch of facts and figures. We can be the child of kindness and mercy. We can be a child of nobility. We can be a child of might, because aren't those all just different names for God? And aren't we all royalty? We didn't have to marry into it like a couple of Solomon's officials. We didn't even have to grow up with it. I hope we did, and I hope you do that for your kids. We claim it, and then we receive it, and then we live like we have it. You got grace. It's right in front of you. Are we living like we have it? You know, I'm so blessed that I did get raised in a loving Christian home. Not perfect. I struggled for a few years because, you know, you live with those imperfections every day. Things about your mom and your dad that you think they should have done different. Things that wounded you that you kind of have to forgive, acknowledge, and then forgive. And things that you feel like maybe you missed out on that you shouldn't. But overall, to live with a mother and a father who knew the Lord and who were never shy about telling me how much they loved me. Even if I didn't like how they did it, I always knew they loved me. And that gave me a leg up. They weren't rich. Struggled financially my whole life. My father chose a life of really teaching fairly poor people as opposed to a life of significance where he could have made 3, 4, 5 times as much. Significance. He was significant. And I have that heritage for me there are things I've had to drop. Maybe things, parents always have some things that you got to unteach. Maybe a drive to work too much. A drive that I have to get it done now. A feeling of guilt if I'm not working 80-hour weeks. I had to drop some of that stuff. But overall, I had a lot of loving heritage, and my husband and I have been through so many storms and back, and I wouldn't wish them on people, but I'm grateful for them because God has used that, and my beautiful daughter and my wonderful son-in-law and my granddaughter. I just have so much to be grateful for, so much to hitch my wagon to. But I know on my best days I focus on the fact that more than anything, it's not the people. The people are the blessings. The people are the help. But it's that person of Jesus Christ that I can hitch my wagon to. It's that's the heritage that's most important. That's the heritage that I don't want to claim, I want to cultivate. Because where there's Jesus, there's victory, and there's purity, and there's might. And everything that you can almost tell from the names that Solomon was cultivating to bring a kingdom of peace. God wants to cultivate that in me. And he wants to cultivate that in you too. And if you're watching this and you have not claimed that heritage, claimed that father, claimed those things, you don't have to be an orphan. You don't have to be a child of mess up. You don't have to be a child of mistakes. I mean, we all make mistakes. That doesn't have to be your identity. That's just part of your story. It's a stepping stone. It's not the crown. Just call and ask on him. Lord Jesus, there are people out there who need to know you, that need to understand, and just draw them into your presence right this moment, Lord. I just pray for that, Lord Jesus. If someone's watching, that you draw them in. And Lord, all of us need to be reminded, not from time to time, but daily, of who we are in you, of who our true Heavenly Father is, of what you'd offered us to cultivate, God. Lord Jesus, we just want to offer you our sin again right now, our weakness and everything, and we know you can use it, and we claim who we are in you, not because of things we've done, but because of who you are. And even at the same time, Lord, we want to commit, and help us commit every day, to leaning into that identity, to leaning into your strength, and to allowing our lives to just overflow and ooze from what you've already put in us, God. We thank you and we honor you, and we want you to be blessed, even as we are blessed today, to walk in your way. In your name, amen. Be blessed, my friends.